Morning. Now, interesting story for you this morning. The British Deer Society has expressed concerns with the way in which the government is deciding their future deer management plans. Now, we have some estimates of up to 2 million deer in the UK. Now, those are estimates, and every few years there's a new deer management plan that the government seem to come up with that decides how on earth we're going to control that population of deer, because, of course, having this huge population of deer in the UK is detrimental to many other small mammals and many other aspects of the woodland, because, of course, deer seek out a lot of the vegetation to eat for themselves. But now the British Deer Society has said that the way the government is potentially going around trying to get their head around these numbers is going to be wrong. Well, David Mcauley is the Chief Executive Officer of the British Deer Society and joins me live here on TalkTV. Morning to you, David.
Good morning. Morning, Crystal.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning here on TalkTV. So is that about right, what I was saying, that we do seem to have a pretty uncontrollable population of deer at the moment here in the United Kingdom? There are many negative effects that come from that, but the government don't seem to be able to get their head around how to solve it, and they don't seem to be accurate around how they plan on getting their heads around the numbers.
Yeah, we have a concern that the figure of 2 million is the figure that's constantly used to set deer management numbers. And what we wonder is, first of all, nobody really knows if there's 2 million deer. There could well be 2 million, 3 million, 4 million deer. And if the starting point is a number that nobody really knows, well, then how are you going to manage deer correctly? And so the society, which is concerned about deer welfare, has been going for 60 years. We just want to take a different approach to deer management, which is to look at the impact assessments, look at the damage that's being done, because we have 6 species of deer, and not all deer do all damage. And if you're going to have a management plan, let's look at the assessment, and let's look at the damage done to the land. Let's look at the land, if the land can hold the number of deer. Let's look at the male and female populations of deer, because you should be managing females. So let's look at that, and then come up with a localized management plan that can manage deer correctly.
Because too many deer is terrible for the environment. I mean, many parts of the country, deer make establishment of new woodlands or maintenance of existing ones impossible because they browse out young trees, regrowth from cut stumps. They can be overgrazed by deer, and so there is an environmental impact to too many deer. Do you acknowledge that when there are too many deer, there is a problem?
We absolutely acknowledge if deer are not managed correctly, there is a problem or a potential problem. We acknowledge that. All we're saying is that stop sensationalizing the figure and causing people to think that there's 2 million deer. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's roughly 2 deer for every square kilometre. I've walked down London's streets. I haven't seen deer walking around it. I've walked around Salisbury. I haven't seen deer. So let's look at the regional areas. The other thing I think the government could do is we need to plant trees. We need to have a way of capturing carbon. But rather than just plant trees, why not do an assessment to see where the deer are and where the wildlife are, and then make a decision to control the wildlife and then plant the trees, not plant the trees and then start getting concerned about the wildlife. It's just a different approach.
But how would you then control the deer population? Firstly, how would you get your head around the numbers? If you're saying that 2 million is not an accurate number, then firstly, how would you go about getting an accurate number? And how would you then go about potentially trying to control that deer population?
So there are many ways in today's modern technology that you can get numbers. It used to be you had to go out and walk and count. Now you have drones. You can do drone surveys. You can do infrared surveys. You can look at deer. I don't think you should be getting the UK-wide number. I think you should be looking more regionally at saying, okay, this is where there's a problem. Let's do a drone survey. Let's do an app survey. Let's do a citizen science survey. Get the school kids out to look and count and capture data numbers. And then we can come up with a management plan, which I think will be a much better approach.
And what would be your management plan?
Well,
what would be a plan that would make the deer society happy, that is perhaps humane enough, but perhaps also respects that when there is overpopulation of certain deer, that it has ecological problems?
Well, if you do a proper management plan, you're going to have a healthy deer herd. You're going to have a healthy, happy deer herd. And I think the problem is that we humans have killed all their natural predators. So deer have to be managed. It's lethal. It's lethal management. That's the only way you can really do it. So, you know, it's people going out with rifles and shooting deer. We're a welfare organization. We want to make sure that those people are trained to the highest standards, that deer, if they have to be managed, are shot with one shot, that they're then treated with respect, and that the outcome of that is venison going into the food chain, because venison is a very healthy meat, and not enough of it goes into the food chain. And actually, at this minute in time, we've been asked not to control deer in certain areas because the producers can't take any more venison. They can't take any more carcasses.
Well, also, but weirdly as well, I was reading this morning that we import 3,000 tons of venison a year from New Zealand.
That's correct. Most of our shelf deer in the supermarkets will be imported from New Zealand.
We seem to have a perfect... Well, there are methods over and above shooting, is I think the point I'm trying to make. That firstly, you're quite right. There are many people who like to eat venison. So why we're importing so much when we have an overpopulation of deer in the UK seems balmy. But also, the other aspect of this is rather than people having to go out and shoot deer who perhaps aren't qualified to do so, could we not reintroduce lynx or wolves or any of those sorts of animals that would have been at the top of the food chain, that would therefore naturally keep the population of deer low?
That's a very good question. I'm not too sure it's possible, because red deer are quite big, and if you put lynx in an area where there's red deer and sheep, tell the farmer when the sheep start going missing that the lynx have decided not to take the deer, they're going to take the sheep because they're easier to take. I think we need to look at reintroduction and rewilding as part of a bigger plan. I think we all need to get around the table and start looking at this using the experts in the field, because there are plenty of them, sitting with government and talking to government and trying to just come up with a consensus, a plan where we can manage deer, and stop using a 2 million figure that nobody actually realizes is just something that nobody understands. It's not a real figure. It could be right. It's probably going to be more. We'll have to accept that. But stop sensationalizing it and start looking at the damage and the impact that the deer are doing, and then coming up with a plan to manage the damage and the impact. And that will result also in a healthy herd of deer.
You are running a campaign about this, right?
We are indeed. We're running a campaign at the minute. It's called Big Give. It's www.bds.org.uk, Big Give. There's videos on there you can see. And what we're trying to do is raise funds to get drones in the air, to get people on the ground to count deer, to get apps being used, so as we can just get the numbers much, much better.
And then you can sort of obviously take the more informed management from there. I think a lot of people will think it's refreshing to hear that you're from the Deer Society, but you're not against controlling deer numbers. You just want it done in an accurate way.
Well, yeah, we want a healthy herd of deer, or we want healthy deer. We're a welfare charity. We have to accept that if you have too many deer about, that the deer will be lighter because there's not enough food, and they'll not survive the winter in Scotland because it gets really cold and they can't build up the fat, and that's an awful way for deer to die, a slow death in winter. So we want deer to be managed properly and their welfare to be at the heart of everything people do.
All right, really good to talk to you. Thank you. That's David Mcauley, Chief Executive Officer of the British Deer Society. Interesting couple of texts on this. I think the deer should be culled each year, says Dan, and decide with statistics for an acceptable percentage. Also, sustainable venison food supply to supermarkets for a different meat, which is a very healthy meat, says Dan. John from Angus says, if you're going to have a conversation about deer, I would link badger numbers to that conversation. I see more of them dead on the road than I do deer. Well, of course, about 20 people, I think, die from hitting deer on the roads every year as well. Another one here as well from Wayne saying, what you could do with the deer is capture them and give them to other countries, and it saves culling them. Well, Wayne, I think that's probably not practical, but what probably is practical is that we start exporting venison to other countries, because at the moment we import venison when we've got a staggering number of deer in the country. So that seems to be a little bit barking mad.